I think it would be back when I started acting in Chicago. I wasn't very good, and I remember my first experience on the stage. I was so bad I just walked out on the street and started walking. And I walked for a couple of hours, and I realized I'd walked the wrong direction. Not just the wrong direction in terms of where I live, but the wrong direction in terms of a desire to stay alive. And so this may be a little bit not completely true, but it's pretty true that I walked. I then thought, well, if I'm going to die where I am, I may as well just go over towards the lake, and maybe I'll float for a while after I'm dead. So I walked over towards the lake, and as I got there, I realized I'd hit Michigan Avenue, and I thought, well, Michigan Avenue, that runs north too, and so I started walking north, and I ended up in front of the Art Institute of Chicago. And I just walked inside, and I didn't feel like I had any place being there, and they used to ask you for a donation, when you walk into a museum, and I just walked right through because I was ready to die, and pretty much dead. And I walked in, and there's a painting there, and I don't even know who painted it, but I think it's called the Song of the Lark, and it's a woman working in a field, and there's a sunrise behind her. And I've always loved this painting, and I saw it that day, and I just thought, well, look, there's a girl who doesn't have a whole lot of prospects, but the sun's coming up anyway, and she's got another chance at it. So I think that gave me some sort of feeling that I too am a person and get another chance every day the sun comes up.
And we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
If you listen to this from the top, you would have heard something that was a little non-wrestling related. That was Bill Murray talking about how art saved his life. And I just like the closing line of that where he says, he talks about the painting, the Song of the Lark, and I guess the reasonings behind why he felt like it was kind of inspiring that the sun comes up tomorrow, and you can take another crack at whatever it is that you need to take a crack at the next day. I don't know who you are, where you are, what you are living with or dealing with or getting past. I just felt like for whatever reasons this was somewhat appropriate. So, just take that for what it is. There's tomorrow. Sun is going to come up and you'll get another shot at it. Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Mr. Green, and you are listening to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling podcast, as stated. And we got another week of reviewing WoW and all this phenomenal glory and its storylines and angles and so on and so forth. Did you look at the assignment last week? The match that I had suggested. Mickie James versus Vix Crow, the former Alicia Fox. I think, I can't remember if I did it. The link, I believe I put in there so people would be able to find that. Like I said, it was a better match than I thought possible, really. Because the only reference to Vix Crow as a wrestler, and I should probably not use the Alicia Fox run as her defining moment. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you choose to take it, she was there at a point in time where the Divas era was in full effect, and a 2 or 3 minute match was probably the norm. So she didn't really get a lot of chance to do anything along those lines. She did get a chance to act crazy on screen, but outside of that, not really noted for her overall wrestling skill in the ring. Perhaps now that might change. I'm at least willing to give it a shot and watch how it's progressed. I have noticed that there have been a couple of the matches that have popped up with her in it since she has returned to the fabled squared circle. But I will just leave that as it is. If you haven't had the chance to check it out, the match is titled Mickie James versus Vix, V-I-X, Crow. In parentheses is formerly known as Alicia Fox, or FKA for Alicia Fox. And that's from Oceana Pro, OPW. So if you didn't hear it last week, me mention it, if you skipped it for whatever reasons and you're interested in it now, that is the match. It is also listed as a free match. In fact, that's in the title, free match, Mickie James versus Vix Crow. So that is my suggestion. I may have another one at the end of the episode. Try to find some other things just to broaden our palettes so that it's not up and down. Wow, no offense to WoW, but it's the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. So we try to focus on all women's wrestling, not just one singular thing, despite the fact that that is the bulk of what goes on here. So having done that, before we get off into our review, as we typically do, it is now time for news, views, and updates. So, as it is, there isn't a huge amount of stuff, and I know that we find that every week, except for some random weeks here and there that the business is cooking and there's a lot of things to go on and talk about. It's not a bunch, but there are enough, and I think that we need to get a few things out of the way. One of which, Liv Morgan retained. Her title wasn't on the line in the first place, but she is the first women's crown jewel champion winner, defeating Nia Jax. It was a lot of stuff that was going on within that, but at the end of the day, she did become the first crown jewel female champion. Now, as stated by Triple H, the titles themselves will not leave the country. They're not going to leave that event. So we will not see Liv show up with that belt. That thing is huge, too. But we won't see her show up. I don't even think she could put it around her waist. Well, no, she probably could. It just might not be comfortable. Getting back to the point, I know I'm just all over the place. It is supposed to remain there in Saudi Arabia, where the fans can see it, so it will be out on display. There is a picture with them having it in a display case later on. But what they will get is they will get a championship. Yeah, we'll call it that, a championship ring. It's kind of like the old WCW Battle Bowl. Battle Bowl happened once a year, and the following year they would get a ring. Like, okay, whoever won it would get the ring to represent the fact that they won Battle Bowl. So the first winners, Cody Rhodes, Liv Morgan, congratulations. They got to take the photos with the belt, and as the belt goes on display, they receive their rings to represent their championship win over their rival champions in their particular cases. So there we go with them and that. I guess a big congratulations out for both Rhodes and Morgan. Sorry, clear my throat here. That would have been an opening line for a rap song, but I won't go into that. We talked about last week the WWE ID deal with them attaching themselves or allowing certain training facilities to be attached to them would probably be a more appropriate way to describe it. And as it is right now, these are all locations. They are not independent promotions on their own. They are training facilities or training schools that some happen to run shows. Reality Wrestling being probably the best example of it because they actually air on TV. And they have their full shows up on YouTube. Nightmare Factory does run shows. I don't know if they air it anywhere. They certainly don't air it here in Atlanta. And I live in a location where I would be able to see it, but I haven't seen that. But in any case, prospects for the ID, or I guess it's called ID prospects, have begun to roll out, and they have picked up 2 prospects thus far. The first one being Zeta Steel, which becomes the WWE's first prospect as far as that program is concerned. And I'm going to try to make sure I pronounce her name correctly. Zara Zakir, also announced as a WWE ID prospect. Now, let's keep in mind that being a prospect for them does not guarantee a contract, but it does give some sort of leeway. The way I understand it right now, it almost gives the WWE kind of like a first dibs thing, which I'm sure, I don't want to say works against other promotions like AEW in particular, but it does put them into mind, people who sign in or get identified as that. I'm pretty sure that they're going to lean further towards wanting to go to WWE rather than anything else just because of that. So it is the beginning phases of this. I am interested to see how this goes because they talked about a number of things that get attached to the WWE ID program. For those who didn't hear it last week, ID in this case stands for Indie Development or Indie Developmental Program. So it's not just a nice ID as in terms of the name, is actually stands for something. But it will, according to them and their press release, that designation, I'll say potentially will provide them with support in the vein of financial opportunity, assistance with training, mentorship, and development. They also said they would have access to, I guess they call it world-class facilities. So I'm assuming that the PC in Florida, I guess if you happen to be there. Now, what these things mean specifically, that has not been established. We don't know what providing financial opportunity means. Sounds good, but we don't know specifically what that means. And we do have to take into account that could be, I don't want to say construed, but it could be kind of stretched in different ways. It may not necessarily mean that you're going to be like getting a check from WWE. It might just mean that, hey, look, we'll give you a gas card so you can drive to the places you're going, or we'll give you an allowance so you can, catch a flight. I don't know. I'm just saying before people run out like, they're going to pay me to do this. Just keep in mind that WWE has not established what these things mean as of yet. I'm sure it's good for anybody that gets the WWE ID designation at this point. I'm sure it's better than just, hey, I'm on the indies on my own. But having that may be a difference maker for them. I am waiting, and I'm sure that others are too. I am waiting for a full explanation as to what the financial opportunities mean, the assistance with the training for them means, the mentorship, the development, the access to the facilities, so on and so forth. I would really like to see this thing roll out, so I know exactly what it is that they're providing. But congratulations to both young ladies on getting the designation. I'm sure it will help them out to some degree, especially if they get the opportunity to appear on WWE's television to any degree at all. Because they are seemingly less stringent these days about allowing their talents to go elsewhere. I've said it in one of the previous podcasts. We've seen Shayna Baszler show up at Game Changer. We've seen AJ Styles go to Japan. We've seen Lexis King, Brian Pillman Jr. recently showed up at Deep South Wrestling to wrestle. Why did I just lose his name? It's one of the top guys. It's not anybody that the world would know, but Skrilla the Great. I just wanted to be able to say his name for anybody that might know him. But Lexis King showed up to wrestle him. I think he showed up in Reality of Wrestling also. So they're a little less stringent about where they would have people going. And perhaps, and I only say perhaps, I don't have anything to base this on, having the WWE ID designation may allow them to show up someplace and not have to worry about, or the promoter not have to worry about having to pay them. They might get paid through WWE. I don't know. Still, but all of that aside, good for them. I hope that it does something good for the indies rather than gut it or, hinder some of the promoters and price them out of certain people, because that has always been a concern when the WWE comes to do whatever it is that they're doing. Is that when certain people get attached to WWE, get a WWE designation, sign on with them, but they essentially at that point get priced out of what most indie promoters can afford. If you're a promoter on the indies, you're probably looking to spend, depending on how big your promotion is, but I would say anywhere between, for a high caliber talent, on the high end, you might get somebody between 8 and 1,000. On the high, I mean, that's probably with a good name. On the low end, maybe 300, something along those lines. So, it is a legitimate concern that some of the promoters may have, but like I said, I am hopeful that this will not be a gutting of indie talent rather than an add-on. So we'll see how that goes. For those of you that are MLW fans, you have your upcoming MLW Featherweight Championship match November the 9th in Chicago at Cicero Stadium. Champions Janai Kai taking on Persephone and who's the other young lady? I can't even. That might be hard to pronounce. So again, young lady, I'm sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly. Luvia. I think that's it. In any case, if you are a fan of that particular promotion, you have that to look forward to. Not to mention the entire Lucha Apocalypto show. So you have that. And it will probably, if I'm not mistaken, it will stream. Check out MLW's YouTube channel. I'm sure you'll be able to find it there. It's somewhat funny to me that MLW has essentially become an extension of what Lucha Underground was. Like, I know they can't officially say that. I know they can't be like, it's the Lucha Underground guys, necessarily. But, I mean, they had the former general manager there, and they got this Lucha vibe happening with it right now. And it's been that way ever since he showed up with, what was his name? Quavo, back in the day. Ever since he showed up at MLW, it's kind of taken on the role of being the spiritual successor to Lucha Underground. So there's that. That's not big stuff. I just felt like talking about it because I saw that it's a really great graphic for their triple threat. And yes, I forgot to mention it is a triple threat match. For the first time in WWE, there is now a secondary women's championship on the main roster. It happening on NXT was one thing, and it was good for them on NXT, the Women's North American Championship. But now we have the WWE Women's United States Champion or Championship. Nick Aldis just announced that on the last episode of SmackDown as of this recording. I did watch the video. He has that up, of course, or I should say WWE has it up. And how they are going to establish this championship has not been determined as of yet. What he did make clear is that it's not going to be assigned to someone. It's not just going to be given to someone. They're going to have to earn it. How novel an idea that the champions would have to earn the title that they get. And I'm pretty sure anybody that's listening to this knows I'm talking about those stupid vanity belts that's in WoW that was just given to somebody, but we're the best team in the world. Yeah. Anyhow. So we have a United States Women's Championship. I assume that there will be a tournament that will go along at some point to establish who the inaugural United States champion will be. And I was thinking about this when I saw the video. Will this be the open door for a secondary women's championship on Raw now? I mean, NXT now has a secondary women's championship in the NXT North American Women's Championship. SmackDown now has created one, even though it's not active as of yet, but they now have a secondary title for the women, the Women's United States Women's Championship. Will there be a Women's Intercontinental Championship or some other version thereof? Will that happen? I would tend to think that they, wow. I'm not talking about you yet. Wow, get out of my head. WWE tends to want to keep things even across their brands. So my guess would be, I would think that it was like around the corner. But that also brings up another thought. Will they take the effort, they being WWE, to just create a women's wrestling show altogether? I mean, now think about that now, because you've got a lot of talent on any given brand. And you now have a lot of championships on any given brand. WWE Championship, Intercontinental Championship, Tag Team Championships. I'm glad they got rid of that 24/7 thing. That thing is awful. WWE Women's Championship, WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, and now you're introducing a sixth one. And that has always been one of the great complaints that their colleagues, I say that loosely, across the way have had to deal with, that being AEW, that you've got too many championships under one roof. So it leads me to believe, I mean, will it help for certain people? Absolutely. Because I've always maintained that having a secondary championship does help with some talent rather than not having it, because there are people who need things to do. Now, I also feel and have said that you cannot rotate the entirety of your existence and or career around a title. Got to have more things to do than that, but there are people there who probably would not have gotten a championship shot at anything if they didn't have a secondary title to go after. And some people need that just to establish the championship through the work and effort that they put into being that champion. Look at Gunther. Gunther helped reestablish what the Intercontinental Championship means through that incredible run and all of those matches that he had. He may be the reason that the world's title on Raw right now has started to develop a cachet to it. All due respect to Seth Rollins, but he was just given that. All due respect to Drew McIntyre, because he didn't have it long. Gunther is the one that won it and had walked into being the champion as somewhat of a workhorse already. So he helped establish what the title is. I expect a similar thing to happen somewhere along the line, given the time, with their Women's United States Championship. Somebody there is going to have to establish this thing as being a title worth fighting for. And of course, we'll talk about that as it relates to the other promotion later on. But getting back to the question is like, will they have enough time in their programs to feature all of these titles? When they had the WWE Network on their own, it would have been very easy to be like, well, they could just make another show and just stream it on the network. But they are going to Netflix. Time constraint probably is not going to be that big of an issue. And we don't know the full extent. I believe it's just supposed to be Raw, but I don't know the full extent that their deal with Netflix is. They may allow them to produce some other programming along with it. WWE usually tends to do things like that. Like them signing in for one thing, for one program is one thing, but they usually have the leeway to create other stuff also. So imagine if they were to create an hour-long show just for their women. Would that be a bad thing? Especially when you want to feature them and not have to be constrained by, well, we got to make sure Cody Rhodes gets his airtime or CM Punk gets his airtime or whoever. And I cannot say that any of this is going to happen. I only mention it because the championships this championship is introduced, and I am a little curious. I'm a little curious as to, well, will this give more time to someone else? Will this be featured prominently? I would imagine it definitely would in the first couple of weeks, if not months. Will they go out of their way to try to make this thing work? Or will they give something else along with it, i.e. another TV show, in order to provide that? Time will tell. But I will say this before I move on, as it relates to the idea that WWE could or would do a all-women's program. WOW should hope that never happens. They should legitimately hope that WWE does not decide to do that. Not because they would go out of their way to aim to destroy WOW, because I don't think that WWE would look at it as a blip on their radar, honestly. Nor do I think that it would provide any sort of threat, to have the all-women's WWE show exist in the same universe as WOW. The reason why I said that WOW should not want that is largely because of how it's run already. It won't require WWE to do anything. If they have an all-women's promotion that simply exists, it is going to detract from WOW immediately. WWE already detracts from every wrestling promotion. WOW isn't exempt of that, nor are they the sole focus of what I'm saying. The WWE, whether you like them or not, they are the most influential. the biggest and most prominent wrestling promotion that exists on the planet. That's just a fact. And where they go, there goes the industry. Again, whether the promoters out there choose to agree with that or not, where the WWE goes, there goes the industry. WWE decides that their women needed a title attached to them, divas. Then you got knockouts and vixens and diamonds and, stuff like that across the board. When they decided that they wanted a Titantron, everybody else we got to have a big screen up here in order for people to see and so we can run the music videos like everybody else. WWE decided they wanted a 3-person booth. Well, we got to have a 3-person booth now. WWE calls their backstage area the gorilla position. Everybody else calls it a gorilla position, even though it doesn't apply. It's only the gorilla position because Gorilla Monsoon sat there and they named it after him. That's it. That's the only point behind that. It's a waiting area that just happens to have a nickname, but everybody, they like to call it that. I mean, I've been in indie promotions where they've done it. Hey, go to Gorilla. I'm like, come on, no gorilla position here. I mean, the backstage area. So yeah, where the WWE goes, there goes the industry. And because of that, and because it's identified by every casual pair of eyes that comes across it, they would then be the bar. Right now, WoW isn't necessarily the bar, but they also don't have anything to compete against either. They just get to exist. And they get to exist at this point without any sort of existing rival, competitive, whatever you want to name it, promotions that have featured all women on a large scale. There's other promotions out there that have all women. They just don't have it on the scale that WoW does, at least at this point. If the WWE decide to do it, they're immediately going to go into the market and they're immediately going to be slotted directly above WoW, just out of the nature of it being WWE. And if that happens, there then will become the standard bearer that all casual eyes, wrestling fans, and anyone in between would look at as that's what women's wrestling is. And WoW would get bumped out of that. Now, there is one small sliver of hope if that were to happen, and this is all, just theory. Okay, so there is no note or idea that I've read or press release and nothing like that says they're going to do it. I'm just speculating right now. If they were going to do it, the sliver of hope that they might have is if that there's an all women's wrestling promotion on WWE, it may increase the appetite for certain fans out there to find and seek out other women's wrestling. And then WoW would be able to benefit from that. In that case, it would be a good thing. But if that is not the case, if they do not have that, if it doesn't create an appetite or thirst to go out and find this, it would be like everybody else that comes around with WWE. If everybody compares any wrestling promotion, except, every casual viewer at least, they compare any wrestling promotion to WWE, any of them. It's the first thing that the average pair of eyes will always do. Well, it's not like WWE. I hear that about WoW right now. Especially when I get new people that come into the room and they're seeing WoW. And, how that's going to compete with WWE? Like no other wrestling promotion exists to average persons other than WWE. So if it were to happen, if there were to be a women's wrestling branch or brand created by WWE, it might be an additional nail in Wow's coffin. There's one thing they would not be able to say, and they shouldn't be saying it now. One of the things that they land on and that they go out of their way to make sure that it's part of the press, well, we're the only women's wrestling promotion with a global footprint. All of that would stop if WWE chose to get into the game. All of that will stop. It should stop now because technically they're not the only women's wrestling promotion with a global footprint. Stardom does exist. But they do get the ride off of the fact that the average person does not know that what Stardom is, and Stardom doesn't have as strong of a reach in the United States as WoW does. And WoW's reach in the United States, what was it? What are they averaging? Somewhere about 200,000 viewers on the normally. At least that's what it was before people just stopped getting the reports for it altogether. So there's that. Moving on, before we go into the full-on review, there are two other things that I want to make somewhat, not clear, but I do want to talk about. It came up to me. Somebody was talking about, I think it was a post where they was talking about the gimmicks that take place in WoW and just gimmicks in wrestling. And in so many words, it's like, well, are there gimmicks any more over the top than other wrestling promotions? And it's honestly a bit intriguing. And the truth of the matter is, no. If I'm going to be completely honest, their gimmicks are not more over the top than other wrestling promotions have or will have going forward. That's pretty much a fact. Let's look at some of the gimmicks that I know of off the top of my head. We got a beauty queen that's in wrestling right now. Got a surfer girl that's in wrestling right now. We got a sleep demon, if we want to call it that. That's in wrestling right now. And none of which that I've just named are on WoW's program. None of them. The ones that I just talked about off the top of my head are all NXT. The difference is, and I think it is a very notable and strong difference. The difference that they have is that the gimmick that they exist under is not their sole defining quality. Yes, there are gimmicks that are on. They got a mafia boss, allegedly, that exists on NXT. I'm not even talking about Gambino. But they and somebody that's in college. Chase U got his own school. So the gimmicks are there. The thing that saves NXT's competitors from being viewed as or categorized as campy and goofy and silly is that it is not the singular thing that they're known for. Most of the people that I've just named either have participated in, been a part of, had some level of interview, backstage segment, in-ring promo, something to help flesh out to the viewing audience who they are. And that accounts for a lot. Because when you give that up, at least you give them the opportunity to exceed beyond the shallow waters of the gimmick itself. You get to exceed beyond the shallow waters of, hey, she's just running around with a sash and a crown on, declaring herself to be Miss NXT. Is it still silly? Sure. But it does provide some depth to where you can get past the silly. When was the last time you heard Spring Break 24/7 say anything? Nothing. Has, what's the new one? Brittany Bay, has she said a word? How about Blaze? Has she said anything? Fortunate for her, her gimmick isn't a gimmick necessarily, but has she said anything? You see where I'm going with this? That is the difference. That at least elsewhere, because NXT isn't the only ones that does that. Neither is WoW. TNA has had that also. I mean, they have a legitimate demon there as far as their world is concerned. And I'm glad they've toned that crap back. But like Rosemary. Now, in my universe, she would just be somebody who believes that she's a demon, but, you know, that's just me. That's neither here nor there. The point is that they had it, or they have it. And there's been times that they've been able to drag that out and flesh it out. And if nothing else, even if you took that away, she's been able to have exemplary matches that would overshadow the corniness. WoW doesn't tend to have that with a lot of people. Some of them, the corniness just will prevail. There lies the difference to me. So when I was presented with this question, and I had to sit and think about it, I said, well, what's the difference there? And I went and I watched TNA wrestling, and then I looked at NXT, and I even looked at there was an indie show, all women show. I wish I could remember the name of it right now. It wasn't spectacular. I every once in a while I like to browse through some YouTube channels just to see up and coming talent. Don't know why, I just do it. But I watched that, and there was gimmicks in there, you know, like they tend to be. Like one of them was a baseball player or something like that. But again, the show, how they presented themselves, them on the microphone, it took it outside of it just being, I'm playing baseball. You know, it took it outside of that. And that's why I think the major difference exists between WoW's gimmicks and NXT's or any place else. They come off as more campy because it is all you're given. It's very shallow water. And the gimmick that you have is the gimmick that you are, and that's it. It doesn't go beyond that. There's no real rhyme or reason or explanation to it. It's just, all right, you're a scoutmaster. You know what I mean? You're a classmaster, whatever that is, a disciplinarian, a cop, a tow truck driver, a this or that. You know, there's not a lot. Some people have gotten past it. Some. And to those who have managed to get beyond the silliness of the gimmick that's provided them in WoW, then they have punched above their weight class and done more than what they probably expected to do. But because of the nature of WoW, because most of them do not get a chance to talk, because most of them will not ever really get the opportunity to present themselves as something other than the costumes that they wear, it comes off as campy. Next thing. And this, my friends, is an open statement to a certain royalty that exists from a land down under. I was on Reddit and I responded to something that she had said. some time ago. That being, I can't remember the actual post, but the I can't remember it verbatim. Excuse me. But it was basically this: the PWI top 250 came out, and of course, when you post it on a site such as Reddit and whatnot, people have to, got to respond. The person that put it up initially said something to the effect of WoW stars in the PWI list. Now, I had a little bit of a, I don't want to say I had something against it, but I have a little bit against it because it wasn't WoW stars on the PWI women's list. It was people who had participated in WoW, but none of which were listed as a WoW wrestler. Some of which hadn't been there in years. So I don't know if I would go around like, hey, congratulations to all the WoW girls that made it in there. I'm like, no, I can't give it that. The persons that were listed were Willow Nightingale, formerly Eye Candy. That's been years. Vert Vixen, who hadn't been on there since what she did, like 3 episodes before she left. She was glitched the game. But Thunder Rosa hadn't been there in years. Giselle Shaw, same thing. Diamante, same thing. Tessa Blanchard, Kiera Hogan, J-Rod, who hadn't been on WoW's TV yet. So I don't even know why she was listed. Chick Tormenta is the only one that, well, no, that's not true. Tormenta and Haley J. But again, both of them are being listed and classified for their work outside of WoW, opposed to being in on it. And Jasmine Allure, who we haven't seen there in months. So anyway, getting back to the point. Our resident royalty responded. Essentially, it's kind of sad that the WoW wrestlers aren't taken seriously. And I had my response to that, and there's nothing mean. Obviously, I don't have any problems with anybody there, so nothing mean. But I basically said something to the effect that it's not a shot at the talent; it's more a shot at the show. Because WoW perceives itself as a TV show first, and they seemingly go out of their way not to associate themselves with pro wrestling. Seemingly, I can't say for certain that they don't. But seemingly they will not give themselves to a pro wrestling crowd rather than we want to try to get everybody else. And because of that, and because it's creative and taping schedules, like, it's not fair, but I understand why PWI and other wrestling places root around WoW because of those reasons. And I said all of that to say this. She did respond basically and said that she would like to chat about it, or chat, not necessarily about that, on the podcast one day. And I bring it up to publicly say that the door is open. If you would like to come on to the show and talk with me, then the door is open. Now, I did think about that after I read the response. I was like, well, what exactly could I do with her? Because I can't really sit up there and criticize WoW. Well, I could. I would probably just have to tone it down a bit. Because and not for my sake, I would tone it down for hers. I don't want to get in it, anybody that appears on my show, if that were to happen, in trouble. Because the last thing I want anyone on that program to get is heat by association. How dare you go on that show and let him call us stupid and dumb and this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. He said my writing was crap. And it is. It's crap. WoW's writing is crap. I can say that because it's my show. I can say that. Now, having said that, here I would not want to have any representative of WoW that's just underneath that be associated with it and go back and get in trouble or whatever the case would be. So, I would tone it down, and I did think about what could be done. So, My offer is this, because I think it would be interesting and fun, and I'll open up the door to anybody, any persons that are on the WoW roster that would like to participate in this. Feel free to contact me and let me know. I will not say a debate, because debate implies, to some level arguing a point. But an interview / point counterpoint. I offer that. If you would like, and again, this is an open door thing. If you would like to come on and provide the points as to why WoW should be listed as part of the wrestling media's coverage, as to why WoW should be taken more seriously, as to why WoW should be looked at, or the championship should be viewed as something important, etc., etc. If you would like to provide the point of those things, along with being able to sit down and talk about your personal reasons for being there, your growth as a wrestler out in and outside of it, why you got into business, etc., 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 then I roll out the red carpet for you. I obviously would be taking the counterpoint. Not to, disparage WoW, but, my show has had its pace, and I give credit where it's due when I can, but as far as why the media doesn't cover WoW, the wrestling media, so to speak, I would take the counterpoint on that. And we can have ourselves an open, intelligent, and respectful conversation about those things. The choice is yours. So there we go. So anybody that's listening that heard that, and I'm not talking to anybody on the WoW roster right now, I'm just talking about people that might be listening to this podcast. You have now heard it. It is out to the public at large. If that's something that you would find interesting to listen to, let me know. And I may try to reach out a little bit more rather than just making an open declarative statement. If that's something that you feel would be entertaining to sit down and listen to them tell you why you should be watching WoW, and what this championship means, and what this promotion means, and why some of these people should be listed as part of the top wrestlers in the world, and so on and so forth, then I suggest, if you are able to reach out to them, or whatever the case, leave a comment or anything of the like. You can leave the comments here underneath this podcast, wherever you have to be listening to it, particularly on YouTube, because I find that for whatever reasons, YouTube seems to catch more eyes within that industry than just the standard podcast that I have elsewhere. But if that's what you want, then hey, leave your comments below. And on that note, I think I've covered most of my deal with the news, views, and updates. So it is getting close to the time where we talk about just WoW in general. So this is where I slot my little commercial, my obligated commercial break from YouTube. And I realize there are people out there who might be listening to this on podcast. Listen, if you're hearing just a little pause in between me talking now before I get to the review, is because I leave it so YouTube can drop their little commercial break in there. That's usually the way it goes. Podbean sometimes does it too. But for those who did not know, it's like, why does he keep leaving this space here? Well, that's why. That's why it happens. And I know sometimes the things that are produced for the YouTube version of this may not necessarily translate to the podcast version of it. So that is why. It has now been explained. Now we can go to the break. And when we come back, we will go into the full-on conversation of this last week's women of wrestling. And we're back. So let us go into talking about this particular episode of WoW. I will begin with saying this. I actually was perfectly fine with about 80% of this show. I know, it's strange, right? Now, that doesn't mean I don't have my questions. That does not mean that I don't have my complaints or things that I thought they should have done different. The reason that I give it more or less a thumbs up here is because the matches that took place largely did not have to be weighed down with angles and things of that nature that would cause it to look bad or come off badly. If you can look at most of WoW's programming in a vacuum, it's largely okay when you just see it on its own. When you have to look at WoW as a collective effort, the angles, the match, the setup, and the fallout, that's when it has some problems. That's when it starts having problems. It's those things that make WoW come off as very subpar. You know, I still stand on that. The creative for WoW is extremely subpar. And the longer they go in most of their stories, like I'm very hard pressed to think of a single angle that I felt like this was a good payoff. I'm really hard pressed to think of any one of them that comes across that way to me. The performances by certain individuals on the show are great. From little things that, and I'm talking about people who are not listed as actresses, so to speak, but they perform. And that's what wrestling is. You're a performer more so than an actor. But despite the performance, and like I said, some of them really rise above what I would have thought they would have been able to do as a performer. Despite that, if we just look at the matches in and of itself, and you know, of course, we got the standard 4 matches. Most of these matches were done very well, fun to watch. Very little issues with what went on within the ring. And if we're going just on the merit of that, then yeah, it was a fine show. I mean, I'm burying the lead here by saying it, but it would be a thumbs up program based on that alone. If you are trying to go with everything else, however, that is where it kind of veers off the path. So that is my opening disclaimer to this episode of coverage here. So if I do start talking about the angles, and I know I'm going to start talking about angles, just understand I'm saying that for the angles themselves, and it didn't necessarily offset my enjoyment of the program, but yeah, just to give a little heads up before I start going in and complaining about whatever and whoever. So this show is WoW episode 308. That's season 3, episode 8. We are 8 weeks into their new season. Where has the beast been for 8 weeks? I know I don't usually ask these questions while I go through the opening slate, but where has she been for 8 weeks? I'm going to come back to that question as soon as I finish the slate. WoW, episode 308, season 3, episode 8, titled The Cost of Freedom, air date September. Good grief. Oh, going backwards in time. Air date November the 2nd, chronological number 112. Not to be confused with the old R&B group. The show opens up with Jessie Jones showing up at Lana Starr's mansion in her busted up, beat up pickup truck. Of course, they had to get that because she's from the South, and that's what everybody from the South drives, is a beat up old pickup truck. Jessie Jones more or less barges into Lana Starr's house. And it looks fine in terms of its scene. Now, it's clearly shot as a scene because there's multiple setups for this, both outside and inside the house. What I mean when I say multiple setups is not like this camera just continuously followed her from the truck to the inside of the house. It was more like, we're going to start off here in front of the truck, and we're going to follow you up. Then we'll switch the cameras once we get into the house. All right. So the opening portion of that looked fine. The continuous shot of it looked good. Although it does imply that this camera was just kind of sitting out there in the driveway waiting for her to show up. But we'll get past that. The thing that I did like in this, and it's probably a small item, Jessie Jones gets out and she picks up a big ass stick. And I love that. I love it because it makes sense, not just for her, but it just makes sense that I am walking into this place that I don't know and don't like any of these people. And I don't know whether they're going to try me or not. And since I'm going ahead by myself, I need an equalizer. So she reaches up in the back of the truck and she grabs this big stick. It's a small thing to have, but it makes more sense rather than her just walking up in this place on her own, unarmed, without anything, and not expecting to, be prepared for whatever potential items might happen. The downside that I had here is, like, have you ever been in a mansion before? Anybody? I have. In another life, I was a cable guy / satellite installer. And I got the chance to install in every kind of house, from trailers to mansions and everything in between. One thing I can tell you that I never did when I went up to anybody's mansions is knock on the door. Because they can't hear you. I don't care how loud you knock it. If they're on the back end of that house, they are not going to hear you. The only way that, and again, I know this is a small nitpicking thing. It is. But seriously, if you go into somebody's house that's that big, there's a good chance that beating your hand on their iron door is not going to be heard. You got to ring the doorbell. And the only way that Lana Starr would have ever heard her in a house this size is if she was standing right by the door ready to open it, which she was. Standing right by the door ready to open this thing. Now, I also know that this particular scene was shot twice. The entrance. I tend to notice stuff like that. Sorry. But when she goes in here, if you go back and watch it, Jessie Jones pretty much shoves Lana Starr aside, and then she walks in. If you look through the glass, she's walking down the hallway, right? When you see her return, however, and they replay the scene from the interior. She doesn't have that kind of distance on Lana Starr when she's walking into the house. She shoves her aside. Lana closes it, and she stands there and talks with her for a second or two, and then when she walks in, Lana's right behind her. So that's why I say this is not a multiple camera shoot, but it was multiple takes. And I'm getting ahead of myself to talk about that because we haven't gotten to that particular scene yet. So we have that, and of course, this is portrayed as footage that has been sent back towards WOW. So I can only assume that WOW's cameras are supposed to be here as this is taking place. The next segment we have is the opening match, and that's Top Tier, or at least two members of Top Tier, taking on the Dojo Defenders. And this is out in standard tag team action. And the representatives of the Top Tier group, in this particular instance, are Gloria Glitter and Candy Crush. Coach Campanelli is standing outside with her clipboard and her whistle again, so she got her gimmicks back. So, the match in and of itself, Top Tier as a group, let's give credit where it needs to be. Top Tier as a group looks good. Can't really take that away from them. I like the look. They seemingly work well together. I still maintain that these are just vanity belts. I'm sorry, but they are. They serve no purpose. There is no trios division. It's just a random parade of women that's thrown together in order to challenge them for this belt. They're not involved in any sort of feud. And judging by the end result of this match, whatever angle that they might be participating in seems to be self-implied rather than being against anyone else. So it's a pointless championship. I kind of talked ad nauseum about these belts and how pitiful or worthless they are. Getting back to the opening statement, before I even start with this match, where has the Beast been? It's been 8 weeks. Now I get that they're doing this injury angle, but was it really an injury angle? I mean, go back and watch what happened to the Beast when it happened. She's attacked, she's clocked in the head with a bottle, then she's hit in the head with a belt, which, I felt like the second shot was unnecessary. And before it goes off air, the EMTs are coming out there. They're picking her up and carrying her out. That's the first mistake. They picked her up and carried her out. So how hurt could you be? She just looked angry rather than anything else. And since that time, we haven't seen or heard a word from her. Look, I've had surgery and been able to make a phone call. But for whatever reasons, the Beast is incapable of doing that, and David McLean has to be her avatar like he is for everybody. I spoke to the Beast the other day, and she's doing fine, but she still needs to, okay, well, it's been over 3 months now. Why is this, if this title is as important, and this is the reason I brought it up because I was talking about vanity belts. If this title is as important as it is declared to be, why is this thing on the shelf along with her? The title is supposed to go on. The title is supposed to have some sort of cachet of value attached to it to where, hey, look, we want you to have this belt, but you can't defend it anymore. We can't hold this up for you. So we got to put this thing back out into a while, and the number one contenders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as it is right now, it's more a case of, well, when the Beast comes back, then the belt will come back with it, I guess. I mean, how much longer can you wait? How much time are you going to give her? If you are a heel on WOW's programming and you went down there right now and started saying, Dave McClain, you playing favorites, you giving her all the excuses and time in the world, whereas you made me defend the title every month, they would have a valid point. The point would be valid whether she was attacked or not. If she is incapable of defending the championship, then she has to lose that championship. We haven't seen a singular title defense since, what was it, August 3rd? I think that was the last time that she actually defended the title. That's a long time. I mean, that's a fair amount of time there. How much more? We're at the end of the year. So what else is it going to take? Sorry about that. Just hit my my microphone stand. But yeah, what else is it going to take? And the last person that got a title match that I can recall, Tormenta. But that's been, I guess at this point, months. It would be perfectly reasonable for any heel to say that you are playing favorites here. And what happened to Jessie Jones's drive to be the champion? I never got my shot. I didn't get a chance to wrestle for the title. What happened to that? Anyhow, I know I've gone off away from the match in and of itself, but yeah, so let's get back to the first match. So, again, the opening match and the second segment of the show was top tier, as represented by Glitter and Crush, taking on the Dojo Defenders. Tara Strike and Kalaki. Match is fine. I like the opening lockup. It actually had these two lock up like they meant it. Got to give them that. It wasn't just gingerly walking around or nothing like that. They actually looked like they were trying to forcibly move someone into their position or the position that they wanted them in. And I should say that it starts off with Crush and it starts off with Strike. Crush continues to improve. You know, it's going to take her some time, I'm certain, but she continues to improve. It is another one of those cases where, like, you know, I would like to see her at least test the waters elsewhere. I doubt that she will, but I would like that I would like to think that it might happen or that it could. Because that's the only way that I'm really going to know how good or bad she is, you know, or, you know, outside of the WoW environment. There's a tag in to Kai, who does a really efficient pin on Crush, hooking the leg and the arm and locking the fingers together. I like that, and I like that the camera got a good look at it. Again, it's those things like that I enjoy, where they actually look like they're trying to win a match. And she looked like she was trying to win a match. This is one of those cases, and part of the reason why I said that they worked beyond whatever stuff takes place outside of WoW, whatever angles and stories takes place outside of WoW. Those things. I like the little scorpion kick that Kai gave when she goes for a couple of strikes to the midsection of Crush. Crush catches one kick, whips it down, and then Kai converts it to a handstand, gives a scorpion kick top of the head, and nearly, you know, I guess as far as the match is concerned, nearly knocks Crush out. The camera missed Gloria Glitter. Well, it didn't miss her breaking up the pin, but it did miss Kai going to confront Glitter afterwards. You just saw the body kind of come into the shot with Glitter, and then it goes to the wide shot, and she's going over there to confront Glitter, but we can't see it because it's off camera. So in terms of the production, did not necessarily care for that. Kai and Crush have a little bit of a do-si-do before she shoots off into the corner, and when Kai comes charging into Crush, and this is where another bad camera shot comes into play, she forces her up over the top rope. Of course, Kai has to work with her a little bit to get there. We see Glitter go after her, gives her a kick in the guts, and we don't see what happens after that. We just know that Kai is draped over the second rope, and then Crush is in control. So the heels do their heel thing, even though we didn't necessarily see the full deal of what the heels, or in this case Glitter, did to put her in that position. I can only assume that the kick in the guts was the only thing that she did, but I don't know that because the camera missed it entirely. Glitter does her aerobics wrestling deal. She gets her in a full Nelson, has her going back and forth like she's exercising. She does the Stepmaster number that she likes to do. And I was following a clothesline that she gave her to the back of the head while she was laying down. Of course, during all of this, Campanella's outside taking notes. And she's watching her teammates do whatever it is that they're doing. And again, all of it has been fine. Did not find anything wrong with anything that was going on here. It seemed a very competent, enjoyable match. This is probably one of the better ways that the Defenders have looked. I don't like the Dojo name. I would rather just call them the Defenders, even if it is a Marvel property and probably would violate some copyrights. But they also got somebody on there had somebody called G.I. Jane and Candy Crush, so clearly copyright issues are not a big thing at this point, or at least not as it relates to the wrestlers' names. The spot where, who was it? It was Crush that ran across the ring and gave Tara Strike a punch in the face while she's standing there. I didn't particularly care for that because it makes Tara Strike look ridiculous. There's no way that she did not see this woman charge across the ring to give her a forearm shot in the mouth. But she stood there and then just waited for it and took a smack in the mouth, which is why last week when the team of Sugar and Spice, that same spot happened, I'm glad that she ducked it because it makes sense for her to duck it. I'm not going to stand here and just let you run up on me and punch me in the mouth or elbow me. I'm going to move. In this case, that did not happen. So, got Tara Strike and she did that. My suggestion for someone like Crush is find a more subtle way to look like he can sneak that up and get that move in there without having to just blatantly run across and have her stand there and watch you do it. But aside from that, they get the double team move in on Kai. They're getting the heat on her. They did a nice tandem move, which tossed her down to the mat. There was a front face lock swing by Crush. Also looks very good. Visually looks good. Looked painful. Like she was putting some oomph on there. The one spot that they did between the two of them that I just did not like, largely because I personally find it unbelievable. And I'll get to that. It's a double shot spot. It's a double shot spot that took place during the match. Everything else I liked. I mean, the front face lock swing, the roll through with the wrist lock and arm bar. I thought Crush was doing good. Again, I don't know how much of this is her working in the ring opposed to it just being fully laid out. But she does well with what she has and what she's been presented so far. And so I don't really have a problem with her, and I know that I'm less likely to see this take place anywhere else. So I have to just judge her off of what she does in WoW. But there's a point where Kai and Crush, they get up. There's a lot of K's and K sounding stuff here. Coach Campanella, Kai, and Candy Crush. Good grief. But they had this moment where they're taking shots at each other, right? Kai is doing these kicks, and of course they go for the double knockout thing. Now, I understand where they were trying to go. I just don't believe that Candy Crush would have gotten in a right hook at the exact same time that this woman would have given her a kick in the abs or the ribs. I would think that the legs, call me crazy, I think the legs are a little bit longer than the arm, and she probably would not have gotten hit also at the same time. But that's just me and, how I view things. I didn't necessarily care for that. But that was a small thing within the course of the match. So, Kai makes the tag, as does Crush. Glitter comes in, and then she has to come in and stop because Tara Strike's on the top rope getting her balance. And Glory Glitter has to stand there for like a second or two and watch her as she jumps off the top rope. Which, again, moments like that, I know it happens. I do. But at the very least, couldn't you have edited that down just a couple of frames so that it looked quite as blatantly obvious? It looks pretty obvious that she is waiting for her to jump off and attack her. So, yeah, again, that's just me. But it would have been nice to have gotten something else out of it. Glitter gets up and she goes to the corner. Strike does her strikes. She charges in with a forearm shot and then charges in with like a mafia kick, or at least that's what they used to call it. Catches her with a bulldog out of the corner. Crush comes in and makes the save. I don't know why Crush isn't part of the Fabulous Four with her pink hair and whatnot. She used to be a perfect fit for it. She had an all pink outfit. If we're just going to go off of looks anyway. So there's the smoz at the end. All four competitors get in, and now we got the referee have to stand around. And, hey, guys, they turned him into Scheinberg here. Well, I got to stand and, hey, stop that. Get out. Don't do that, you know. So Crush comes in. She starts delivering some open hand strikes to Strike. Kai comes in to stop her. She tosses her out of the ring and onto the waiting Coach Campanelli, knocks her down. And then Crush is like, oh, my God, Coach, are you okay? And I was fine with this match up until this very point. The match was fine right up in there. Even the double knockout, I could get past, except for this. So we got Crush on the outside, seemingly like so very apologetic, and that's understandable. She just flew her body down on top of Coach, so I can understand that she would be there apologizing. What I don't get is Glitter in there, who now has attached or hooked Tara Strike into Aerobic Annihilator. And rather than going for the move, she turns it around so that she can see Coach Campanelli. And I guess somebody in the ring, I guess the commentators forgot to mention that somebody on the outside had an infanto ray and reverted her mind back to a 5-year-old. Coach, can you see me? Coach, are you watching? I mean, goddamn. So her regression to being a child who needs attention cost him the match because she's over there looking to see if Coach is watching her get ready to do her move. And then she gets rolled up into a jackknife pin, and that's it. 1, 2, 3. Tara Strike pins Gloria Glitter. In concept, this is fine because although I don't like the trios titles, that is what they're noted for, and they lost a tag team match, so they could take the loss without having to have violated or compromised the team. And, it was somewhat of an out in that, well, Crush was down and whatever. She was thrown through the rope. She couldn't help her. I mean, I don't know why she couldn't have, except that she's sitting there apologizing profusely to the coach. So that takes place. She goes down. Glitter's rolled up. And immediately afterwards, Top Tier attacks the Dojo Defenders. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere. Probably not. But the Dojo Defenders take a beating and then they get put on the outside. And then my first note that I wrote down is, why doesn't that get them fired? Match was over. Was it within the confines of this sanctioned match that they had? So, why? Why isn't David McClain like, hey, this isn't right. You guys don't need to be doing that. You're fired. When he just went through a public firing, a week ago? With 2 people who likely did a little less. I mean, the only difference was that they had a weapon. But that would also mean that we'd have to forget the fact that Coach Campanelli and Top Tier did that also. Attack somebody with a weapon. They hit her in the back with a giant trophy. So, why? Why are they allowed to get away with that and others aren't? So anyhow, after the match, Coach cuts a promo suggesting that cuts to the team could happen. And Glitter and Crush have these looks of concern on their face. Like they look like they're so disappointed, Coach Campanelli. I do like the subtle things that they did here. Crush puts her arm on Coach's shoulder. And Coach just kind of brushes it off. And Glitter has this look like, what? Why? You know, and she's upset and disappointed and everything. And Glitter's also disappointed on the side. I don't know if it's ever been explained why persons within WoW that have dealt with Coach have this undying love and loyalty to her. But that's what it comes off like. It's like, we'll do anything for you, Coach. We'll go to the ends of the earth and, you know, fight the biggest fight and go to the gates of hell. And, this, you know, it's like an undying loyalty to this woman, which I have no idea why. Now, it would not be that difficult for in WoW's universe, at least, to establish why. In Coach's case, like, hey, look, I got you these belts. What were y'all doing before me? I made you champions. That's possible. It just hasn't been explained that way. And nor do I get the idea that she, out of this one singular match, now I have to look at you guys differently and see how good or bad you are because you had this loss as a tag team. Which also, of course, protects Coach, right? So she gives the speech and talks about cuts. Also reassures them that no cuts will be made today. And they're like begging and, you know, of course they're not saying it, but they're looking so disheveled and sad and this, that, and the other. I don't know how I want to take that quite yet because it felt for a while like Coach had graduated from that train of thought. But at the same time, it is also true to the portrayal of Coach Campanelli. So I can't say that is wrong. She's always been this way. She's always done that. So I don't know. I am willing to see where it goes. But it also goes back to what I just said. It's like, what does Top Tier have going for them other than that we got these belts that were just manufactured and given to us? We don't really have a feud or a rivalry. We don't have any program that we're part of. And the only thing that really gives them any purpose as a team at this point, seemingly, is an internal issue. That Coach Campanelli might cut one of you loose. Ooh. I don't know if that's something that I would be overly concerned about or care about. And again, it probably would mean more to me. And I can only speak for me. It probably would mean more to me that they would be this disappointed, that they would be this hurt, that they let her down if it was explained why exactly they were so loyal to her to begin with. And that probably wouldn't take much more than, you know, having a good backstage promo or an interview. I do not believe that will take place. I don't think that it will happen, but, you know, whatever. So we are going to move on from that. Except to say, in closing of this segment, I thought that both Crush and Glitter relayed visually what they needed to relay. The disappointment, the dejection, and Coach's subtle move of pushing Crush's arm off of her as she's trying to buddy up with her and whatnot. It was very quick, and very subtle, but very good. So, small things aside, the little things that I didn't care for aside, the match segment, okay. I would need more motivation personally to get behind why they feel so badly that they let her down, or why they feel so compelled that, Coach, are you watching me? Look at how good I am. I mean, because that's just like a kid. Children do that. Anybody out there that's a parent, they know what I'm talking about. They're like, hey, Mom, look at me. You know, they want your approval. So why would these two grown women want the approval for this other grown woman? That part I don't get. So I would like them to explain it, but outside of that, not too bad. Next segment was a promo getting ready for Holly Swag and Siren. Now, we've already had the opening segment where we saw Jessie Jones come to the rescue or show up at the door of Lana Star in her mansion. And that's basically what it was. It was her coming to the rescue of the mother truckers. She comes in. I already told you or illustrated to you how this was reshot or an additional take. The original take was outside the door. This take was inside. So there you go. And it was lined a little differently, although that's not a big thing or egregious enough a problem to be like, I hate this show. That's not a big deal. Lana Star has done well and largely won me over as a manager on WoW. This is probably the thing that she needs to be and what she needs to do. A manager. And she does it well. At least in their universe, she does it well. So get into the segment. Jessie Jones comes in. She basically barges into the house, and Lana's like, "What are you doing? No, they can't leave. They're working for me." And then Jessie Jones has pulled out the wad of cash that she had, that she got from David for providing this non-scene proof that the fans did not watch as to who provided the assault, and slams it down on Lana's table like, "Not anymore. Here it is. Here's your money, and they're with me now. So come on." So Lana pretty much is fine. I mean, she looks surprised, but it's not like she tries to stop him or hold him up or anything like that. They just walk on out. So let's pause this right here. This goes back to the whole statement before. It's like, is Lana Star the bad guy in this equation? What has she done that will align, other than her being annoying? But annoying isn't a crime. You being superficial isn't a crime. And she wasn't superficial in this angle. That's the problem. Like, he can't even use that as a reason to dislike her here. From start to finish, this is mostly the mother trucker's fault. If not most, all. We find this thing. We try to turn it in. We're not going to turn it in at the job that you work. We're going to go to the hotel that you might be staying at, despite the fact that she has a house that they clearly know what she stayed at. Go in here. They mistake me for it. I don't try to explain to you. Then we run up this bill that was $10,000 and then retcon down to $5,000 and then brought back up in a double nothing match that they lost. They lost both of these things. Lost the title, lost the money. And because they brought it up, now we got to work this off. That was their idea, not hers. Which I still don't even understand that, because allegedly in their universe, they have a tow truck company and a big rig truck that is usually designed to go delivering goods. Rather than to do the job, and apparently they wrestle for free also because they don't get any money from that. Well, we don't have that kind of money, Miss Star. We got to go work for you. Oh, God. So they show up, and Lana gives them brand new outfits. Now, keep in mind, nothing on that outfit says Lana Star's property, Lana Star's workers, Lana Star's this, or Lana Star's that. It says Swag's Towing. She had a custom outfit made for them. And not even like a made outfit. This is stuff that they wrestle in now. I really have a hard time saying, like, where was the mean here? Theoretically, all Lana wanted here. And again, it might be verbally portrayed badly. I mean, if we want to give it that. But all she wanted here is like, hey, you ran up my bill. I want this money back. That's perfectly reasonable. And then she makes a deal with him. Okay, because she is a manager, her job is to get her team the best the opportunities that she could provide. I will weigh the money that you owe me rather than to sue you up against those championships. And then she wins. And then they try it again. All right, double or nothing, fine. You want to pay me this kind of money? Fine. And does it again. They win twice. So, cheating and wrestling aside, what did Lana Star do that was so off-putting that would make you feel like these two are just drafted into servitude? This was poorly conceived. This whole angle is just poorly conceived. And then this ending scene of this segment just made it worse for me. So Jessie Jones comes in. She gives the 10 grand. Now, never mind the fact that the mother truckers at no point even attempted to try to get this reward money that was offered up by the boss of a company that they work for in the exact amount of money that they need to free themselves of this problem. I mean, it was very fortuitous that he just decided that, well, I'm offering up $10,000, the exact amount. Go figure. Not a penny more or a penny less. And Jessie Jones. Now, you would have had to have watched WoW for a significant amount of time, probably from season 1 of them being on syndicated TV for you to even know that they knew each other. Because it's not like they interacted a bunch. If you was watching this for the first time, the only thing that you have to go off of is that Jessie Jones is from the South and they're from the South, so I'm helping them. Not that they're friends of mine. It's not really explained why she would be willing to give up 10 grand. We haven't seen her show any empathy for anybody. She saw the Beast get busted in the head with a bottle and laughed about it. But now I'm sympathetic to your cause. And it could be fair. All right, so yeah, she knows them. It just hasn't been established in WoW that their friendship has carried on. Largely, Jessie Jones has been a heel during the time that the Mother Truckers were there or are there. And the Mother Truckers have been babyface largely during the time that they've existed there. So there was no reason for them to interact. But now she has this conscience, and now I'm going to take this $10,000 that I just got and pay your bill for it. It's like the money means nothing to anyone else other than the Mother Truckers. Samantha Smart didn't want it. Jessie Jones is perfectly willing to give it up. Dave McClain just offered it up without even checking for any sort of cameras or anything else that might provide us. Like, that 10 grand might as well have just been $5. As far as everybody else is concerned, to the Mother Truckers, is probably their life savings, or I don't know. So back to the segment. She comes in, she gives the money to Lana Star, and there's no real payoff to this, to them getting their alleged freedom. No real payoff to this. It just transitions to the next thing, and the next thing that it transitions to is that as Jessie Jones is walking them out, she's like, come on. And then Big Red's like, come on, youngin', we got to get out of here, or whatever. They're walking out the door. Holly Swag is picking up the rear, walking out, and then as they come to the door, she's like, all right, y'all go ahead and I'll be right with you. And then she closed the door and she turns around like, who wants champagne? So let's stop again. Where in this did we see or note Holly Swag as being portrayed as equal to or participating in the fun or getting to enjoy herself there or getting to get some, the benefits of being in Lana Starr's house, home, and presence? Where have we seen any of that? Not 2 seconds before she started coming in doing this, or at least a minute to be more accurate. Not a minute ago, she was there serving them drinks. But she's perfectly willing to abandon her mother and her friend, turn around and go back in there and be the servant. How does that make any sort of sense? I honestly, that boggled me. I was like, it might have been different if she was sitting at the table with him and her mom was being forced to serve food and they were luring her away with the seductive power of this lavish lifestyle and the money and the house and the cars and the clothes, the men, whatever. It would be different if those things were flaunted in front of her and she had something to do with it where she was getting to enjoy it. She literally, in this scene, is standing there pouring drinks. Why would you want to turn around and go back into that? Voluntarily. It's not like they forced her to do it. And that's the other thing. At no point did Lana Starr, Penelope Pink, Miami Sweetie, or any of them force her to do any of this stuff. They didn't even imply it. It just, she got a few random objects and perfectly willing to turn her back on her mom over that. And a few random objects that look cheap I'm not going to cuss. They look cheap. I've said it. Go to a Walmart. You'll find it. If you can't find it there, go to a Party City and pick up something. None of that stuff looks like it's expensive. None of it. And I'll give you an exercise to make the point. Google Holly Swag. And then Google Hollywood Haley J. There's a good chance that if you Google Holly Swag, you're going to see her in the standard WOW outfit, right? You Google Hollywood Haley J and click images for both of these, by the way. There's a good chance that you're going to see Hollywood Haley J in at least one or two of those pictures in a fur coat and a hat, and a fur hat, which looks 10 times more expensive than anything that she's wearing on WOW. Now, whether it is or not is irrelevant. It looks the part. If she was given that at least, here's this fur coat. Cost me a couple of grand. I want you to have it because you're doing such a good job here. Matter of fact, here, why don't you take this bracelet? Anything that could have helped provide reasoning as to why she would be willing to just abandon her own mom. Not her tag team partner, not somebody that's on the roster, not just somebody that she was paired off with at random, her mom. Doesn't make any sort of sense to me. So she goes right back in there. And I want somebody to go back and look at that segment. Just watch it. She is not doing anything to participate with them at all. She is the servant. She's literally pouring a glass of champagne while you're watching it. And the Fabulous Four did nothing mean. They did nothing mean. They sat there and watched. Lana Starr got her money and past that point didn't bother to try to stop. Okay, I got my money. Okay, fine. Bye. Holly Swag turned back around on her own accord and went back in there like, as if I'm part of the group or part of the crew now, which nothing illustrated or showed that at all. It just, it just seems ridiculous. And I don't know what, when they closed the door on Big Rig, or not they, I should say Holly Swag. When she closes the door on the two of them on the outside, and they're like, hey, what are you doing? I don't know what Big Rig Betty was doing by yanking at the bars on there. I was like, that's not even the direction that the door opens in, but, I guess that was the extension of the acting that they told her to do. So anyhow, yeah, that was this is just a horrible angle. Not good whatsoever. So, and we'll skip past, why is Jessie Jones even bothering to pay this bill for them? I'm pretty sure that 10 grand could have been good for her too. But we're not going to, like I said, not going to worry about that. So, the next segment is Holly Swag versus Siren the Voodoo Doll. This is a follow-up to, I guess this will be the third interaction between the two of them. One tag match followed by another tag match, and now we got the singles match. The deal here is that Swag now is in the sway of Lana Star and the Fabulous Four, despite the fact that they really haven't done anything to make that happen. She comes out with her scarf and her fur hat and her shades, and she's just over the moon about herself over these cheap items that she got. Siren is waiting in the ring, and Swag is full of confidence and vigor. Without any sort of reasoning as to why she's all of a sudden so confident with herself. 2 or 3 weeks ago, she was terrified to be anywhere around them. Now it's like, oh, yeah, I got no problems. Not only that, but her whole style has changed without so much as any sort of prodding or influence whatsoever. She's now more aggressive. And this is a prime example of the match exceeds the storyline or the angle. The match is fine. The angle around it is ridiculous. And all it would have taken is a couple other things to move that along, but, that won't happen. So, anyhow, the match starts off with Holly Swag. At the start of the bell, she just charges her and Thez press and jumps her down, and she's firing off forearm shots and punches and this, that, and the other, to where Siren has to work to get away from her. Like I said before, Swag is a lot more aggressive in this particular match. Siren does give back when she can, and it is theoretically a babyface heel match. Theoretically. Because we haven't pushed Swag over to being full-blown heel. Even though she is wrestling aggressively, she hasn't taken that extra step just yet until we get towards the end. So, Siren gets out of the ring. She takes a little bit of a breather. Holly Swag comes out, slides, tries to get her with seemingly a baseball slide. Siren's able to get out of the way, drops a couple of elbows across the back of her head, sends Holly Swag back into the ring. And she now does her heel shtick, raking the eyes, pulling at the nose when she's got her in the submission hole. Pulling the hair, etc., etc. It's good stuff, but it's also good stuff from two people that I expected to be good stuff from. Siren still does, very well. And in the times that I've watched Hollywood, she's been very engaging in the ring as well. Siren able to get a Northern Light suplex, if I remember correctly. gets Holly Swag down. Of course, it does not hold her. She does get the advantage for some time until she sets Swag up in the corner and she goes for her cannonball. I forget what she calls her things, sacrifice or something like that. And of course, I forgot to mention that Swag's look is a little different as well. Hair is a little bit longer, got the pink in it on the ends, which is another reason why I'm like, I don't know if they want to go across the board with having. I mean, it's not a big deal. I was gonna say not to have both Swag and Crush essentially sporting the same look in their hair, but that's neither here nor there. So Swag is able to get out of the way of the sacrifice cannonball in the corner, which puts Siren down. She gets up slowly while Swag is able to come off the top rope with a high cross body. Nearly gets the cover, but that doesn't do it. At the end of this, past a slap and a back slap and an attempt at a kick, she's able to hit her with her finisher, the hitch and ditch, and then bam, hitch and ditch, which is basically like a short arm clothesline. 1, 2, 3, and she's done. Siren is finished. Holly Swag wins her match and her first singles match in a while. This is where it begins to show Swag potentially making a turn. The first thing she does, where's my scarf? Where's my scarf? You can read her lips and see that. But when she finishes with that, she turns her attention back to Siren and gets a couple of extra shots in there and then tosses her out of the ring. So again, the aggression that she has and the shots, or the shot that she attempted was after she threw her out. She actually got her hair, twisted it, threw it to the outside, and took a kick at her. Not a babyface thing to do, but again, we see that she is potentially turning here. Now, I don't know if she has enough motivation to turn, but she's potentially turning. So now, David McLean leaves his commentating booth and he comes up and wants to talk to Holly Swag. And as he is, he's, pretty high on her as she's talking to him about, or he's talking to her about everything that's taken place in the last couple of days and so on and so forth. This sets her up being a heel, and everything else is non-important other than Holly answering one of the things they said. I can't remember specifically his question, but she says something to the effect of, well, Big Rick should have been a better mother. And I keep coming back to what was the motivation for this? How was she motivated to turn her back on her mother over what we only see as like 3 items? And 3 items you can get pretty much anywhere. How is she motivated to turn her back on her from this? I don't understand. And it just makes her look easily influenced and an idiot. I cannot state enough. Lana Starr did nothing. Miami Sweet Heat, Penelope Pink, the Fabulous Four in general, they did nothing to encourage her to turn. Holly Swag did this on her own. It's like somebody was telling a story and ripped out all of the middle pages and just jumped you towards the climax point. Like, what did I miss over here? Did I not read how she got here? Like, I mean, imagine you're reading a novel and you're finding somebody out who starts off as sweet as they could be in the beginning of the thing. You miss a couple of pages, and all of a sudden you find out that, I want to kill everybody. Like, what? Where did that come from? And it's not that it couldn't happen, but you at least want to know why. Holly Swag has not given a reason why, nor has WoW. But that's WoW's norm. Next segment. Promo. With a promo for the next match following this. The 6-person. Fury, Sanchez, Genesis, Holidead, Chella, and Kalaki. The next segment is the match itself that was just advertised in the promo before the commercial break. The 6-woman tag. Fury, Sylvia, Sanchez, Genesis versus Chantilly, Chella, Holidead, and Kalaki. Now, I will just start off by saying this is probably, as a self-contained story, probably the best thing that they had on the show. Because my initial response, and again, I don't want to do the entire play-by-play of the match, but the story here is Genesis. She's the important part of this whole thing. On her own, like I said, if we're just going with the self-contained angle of Genesis, my concern was that why are they putting her in this group of 2 people who already was like established as, they wanted to go singular, and then next thing you know, they're in a tag team. That's both Sanchez and Fury, by the way. And then Genesis pops up in it, and I'm like, okay, so we have 3 people who all wanted to go on singles runs, but are now perfectly fine being thrown into a group. So when Genesis comes out, and she immediately, first off, when they come out together, she walks past her teammates, which I liked. Now, I did not like, nor did I understand why they shot a backstage scene together. Not, I shouldn't say scene, like the opening video deal that they do. Hey, come into the ring, and then they'll cut to the footage that they shot in the studio in front of the lights and all that stuff like that. I didn't understand why they did that collectively. If she's looking to be part of, a single star, then there was no reason for her to do this. She did not need to be part of this. A random pairing does not require them to do studio work first. So that does take a little bit off of it, but we'll get past that. So anyhow, they come out the ringside. She does not look happy. She walks, initially she's behind them, and then she just walks right on by. Does not bother with either one of them. And looks like she does have some purpose, and I appreciated that. And the first thing that she does, she goes over to the table, she grabs a microphone, and she explains like, I did not want to do this. And did not tell you already that I wanted to be a singles competitor. Why am I in this tag team? And I appreciated that. Because at least it gave some level of logic behind her position. If she just suddenly abandoned the idea that I don't want to be, that I'm fine with being in them, then what would you break up Exile for in the first place? I did not like the reasoning that David McClain gave as to why that she's in there. It's just like, well, they asked for you, so there you are. Like, is that all it takes? They just asked and like, all right, well, here you go. Whether they wanted it or not, whether they agreed to it or not, whether we get along or not, they just decided they wanted you as a partner, so I made you a partner. And so that part, no. It seems ridiculous that the only thing that Fury and Sanchez would have to do is just say, we want Genesis as a partner, and therefore she's assigned. I mean, never mind the fact that why would they want her in the first place? I'm not sure if they've had any interactions whatsoever. And it's not like we've seen some massively great track record with Genesis. Now she has a good one. But she's just now getting her deal as a singular star together. So it's in the WoW universe of things, would she be ranked higher than most? Yes. But it does not establish to me why they, Sanchez and Fury, would want her as a partner. When I'm sure there are other people on that roster they could have gotten. Nor does it explain to me why Dave McClain would just be like, all right, yeah, fine. And not only did that, but much like he would do with any case, he gave himself in this case the last word. Like, are you going to get in the ring or not? And I don't know what the repercussions of her not going would be, but that's essentially what it came down to. It's like, are you going to get in the ring or not? And so begrudgingly she gets into the ring. But I am glad that I don't know if it was written, I don't know if she decided to do it, I don't know if somebody told her, hey, look, why don't you try this? Whoever, whatever, however it came about, the fact that she addressed that I do not want to be here, I don't want to be part of this team, I don't want to be paired off with anybody, I want to be a singular star, that made a lot of difference in my view for this. And her body language throughout made all the difference in the world. She made it very clear that she didn't want to be there. Standing on the apron, arms folded, turning her back to the action, all of that stuff. All of those small things, in my view, worked. It is also the reason I say this is, if we're just going off a singular self-contained story, this is probably the best thing that you got on the entirety of the show. Easy to understand. It's explained by the wrestler herself rather than David McClain. Now, he's inserted into it, unfortunately. But she at least got a chance to explain that. And not only did she get the chance to explain it, her body language throughout the match reinforced it. And Sanchez, also, her body language in response to her reinforced it. All of those things were important. Now, I don't think that the match in of itself is really a big deal here. Not going to go into all of that. We're going to go past that a little bit. We'll talk about the important elements that took place with it. And one of those elements, this is not important, but I got to bring it up. Well, it's not important as it relates to the match, but I have to bring it up. As the babyfaces are coming out to ringside and they are doing their deal on the ring apron, we get a video clip of the newly christened Scout Parker holding a Save the Planet sign in the back or in the studio area. Now I say the former or the newly christened, I say, because she was formerly Ice Cold. Now, I cannot say anything about this yet because we haven't had her in a match. We haven't seen her wrestle. We haven't heard anything from her. But Dave McClain, of course, has to explain this, which is why there is a problem. She needs to explain it, not him. Basically, it says that she went off into the forest somewhere and found herself, and she came back as Scout Parker. Oh my God! Okay. So again, we're gonna wait before we pass judgment on that because I actually got to the point where I started to like Ice Cold, or at least I was seeing potential in Ice Cold. But if that's not who she feels that she is, and I've heard that several times from a couple of people. I just talked about it on one of the other podcasts. It's the Ruby Soho thing. The Heidi Lovelace was not her deal. Same thing with the Woad. Aysha Sunshine, Dementia the Rose. She's like those, Dimension Rose was closer to what she wanted, but it wasn't the final form that she would take. And Aysha Sunshine was not her idea. She was given it by her trainer, and she just kept it for a while until she found something else, something that was more that she could sink her teeth into. So potentially, the Scout Parker thing could be the deal that she sinks her teeth into and she's more at peace with. But the problem that I have with this is that why was a singular loss to Fury the catalyst for this? What did that have to do with anything? She lost the match and then all of a sudden it's like, I can't do this anymore. And then she walks off and she's no longer ice cold, and then she comes back in an entirely new persona. That part I don't get. Why was that the catalyst? Especially if we're going to a specific gimmick. If she just came back as a wrestler without any sort of overarching identity like Ice Cold, it might have a difference in how I perceive it. It could have just been, I don't want to be a gimmick anymore. I don't want to be this character that is, I just want to do this. But she just traded one gimmick for another. So I'm not entirely sure why this would be the thing that would make her do what she's done. And of course, Scout Parker, formerly Ice Cold, is not here to explain any of this. It is all left to David McLean as normal. And maybe it's me. Somebody would have to listen and tell me your opinion. But did it sound like we were supposed to have already met her? Because it might just be me. The tense in the way he presented it sounded like we've already seen her do her thing and now I'm just explaining it to you. Opposed to this is just, hey guys, Scout Parker will be here next week, or so-and-so's coming back and she's in a new identity, or, I just got word that we got a returning WoW face, but in a new pack, whatever. I don't know how he would phrase it. It just came off to me like we were supposed to already know who this person is and why. And Nigel, well, he really didn't help the situation because he's like, there's a new superhero, David. Like, well, does it qualify as a new superhero if you just change your gimmick? It's the same person that's been here for 3 seasons already, which basically equates to 3 years for them at this point. So I don't know. I mean, again, maybe it's just me. You feel like, no, he did fine. Let me know. Or if you agree with me, let me know that, no, it sounded like we were supposed to already know who this person was. And that's how it came off. It just sounded like we were supposed to know who this person was. So anyhow, the important thing here being the story of Genesis, the 6-woman tag, in my opinion, was just a backdrop to that. I do not know why Genesis comes out with, when she's in her fighting stance, she does the X thing because exile is no longer a deal. So, I mean, I would think that would change a little bit. I don't know why that would be any sort of fighting stance to begin with. So, But overall, just looking at the players involved in this match, I did not expect anything bad from it. We got Chantilly, Chella. We got Holidead. We got Kalaki. We got Sanchez and Fury. Aside from Genesis, most everybody here has a reasonable amount of experience in and outside of WoW. Sanchez, even something as simple as selling in the corner, she did better than most. I pointed it out with Collins. You probably got a little bit of it with Candy Crush, and where when they're in the corner, they have to kind of stand there and wait and try to make it look like I can't leave, or there's something holding me back, or some invisible barrier that I can't move past. Whereas with Sanchez, she sells hurt. Look at her when she starts off the match and she's tossed into it and then, slams herself in that corner. All she relays at that point is pain. When she goes up against that turnbuckle pad, it's like, oh God, I'm hurting and I can't do anything. Now, granted, of course, it's a minor thing. And yeah, there's a part in it where she probably could have just walked out. But at least the effort to give the idea that I am just too hurt to move immediately exist. I realize that she does not also give a lot of facial expressions, generally speaking. However, it's probably more than what I normally get out of her in this match, and what she did just in the corner and her participation with the other ones that she's wrestling with and against. Rather than go through every little bit of it, I would suggest that you watch the match, and again, it's fine. Genesis does participate here and there, but the overall story with her is that I don't want to be here. I don't want to participate. And I'm letting everybody, including my partners, know that I don't want to be here and I don't want to participate. Good work on the camera in that he got it right there in her face to see that. Which again goes back to, I don't know why Fury and Sanchez would have picked Genesis as a partner to begin with when she's made it clear that I don't want to be there. And the last team that she was part of, she broke up. It comes across like she wouldn't be a team player to start. So I don't understand why she would be the pick for them, or why David McClain would just force them into taking her as a partner. Sanchez here again was very good. Probably a little better than I can remember her being. Like, even when Fury is in the ring, she does tag team partner stuff. She got down on the floor, ran across to their opponents, yanked Kalaki off of the apron, then hooked the leg of Holidead, holding on to it, sacrificing herself so that they cannot get into the ring to help. She did that so that her partner Fury would have some ability to take control of the match and, put her opponent, in this case Chella, into some kind of danger. Of course, like I said, Genesis, say it right, Genesis staying true to what's going on doesn't bother. But she does have her moment. She's pointing at Chella in the corner like, hey, come get her. Sanchez holding the hair of Chella so that she can't. And possibly my favorite part of the match is when Sanchez gets up from having done a nice sidewalk slam, great execution, to Chella. She gets up, walks over to Genesis, grabs her wrist, and tags her in forcibly. Which I thought that was really, really good for her just within the context of what's going on. It's like, no, you get in here and do something. Now, this would probably play a little better in an environment where I don't know if anybody remembers Battle Bowl. WCW did that a while. TNA picked up the concept some time ago. God, I can't remember what their was it the lottery? I can't remember what their version of it was by name, but the concept of it was that you're randomly going to be paired off with partners. Sometimes you like the partner, sometimes you wouldn't, but can you get along long enough to win? Right? If that were the setup for that would have been even better for Sanchez to come across and make her get into the ring and, forcibly, hey, get in here and do your part. As it is, yes, Genesis is theoretically forced into taking this match, but the question that I had underneath that was, well, if she chose not to participate in this, would it have really hurt her? I'm glad that she did get to participate. I'm glad that she got into the match, even if it was by force, and played her part. That I thought was good for her. And even to the point where we get to the end and she tags in Sanchez, and then she gets down and walks to the commentating booth, leaving her two partners to have to deal with Holidead as she comes in with the hot tag and everything. Chella's hurt and she's down. Kalaki's waiting on the outside. Holidead's cleaning up. This may have been, I did point out that I said this is about Genesis, and it is. But this may have been one of the better performances that I've seen Sanchez do also. Sanchez can be a bit of a stone face when she doesn't give up a lot in terms of emotion and what have you. She's a lovely young lady, but she could really be a stone face at times. But here she was the participatory partner to Genesis's. Is that how you do that? Genesis's? Genesis. I don't know how you make that plural. Anyway, she participated in what Genesis, her antics. Let's put it that way. She yelled at her, forced a tag, got tagged back in with her. When she is rolled up into the small package at the end, Genesis comes in and reverses it for the ref, like, hey, look, she's got it down, 1, 2, 3, and that is the finish, by the way. Kalaki gets a roll up on Sanchez, but the referee isn't there to do anything about it because he's looking at all the problems that's going on the outside of the ring. One of which was created by Fury, which, again, another little minor detail. She throws Holidead into her own partner. That is a good way to explain away why Holidead and Chella could not get in there to do anything about it. Fury tosses Holidead into her own partner. They're out on the floor. Fury follows her out and makes sure that Holidead cannot get in to stop it. Opposed to one person just being over there, just somehow stopping two people on their own. She used one of their opponents as a weapon. And not just used as a weapon. When Holidead tries to get in, she hooks her so she can. And all I got to do is hold you up for a couple of seconds, just long enough to get that win in. Which is, as I'm saying this, yes, Top Tier is a nice team, but I have yet to see them do anything like that to prevent their opponents from getting in. They just, somehow magically, the opponents just don't do it. Like they'll stop one, and then that person will just get down and like, hey, what are you doing? And try to stop the other person. But here it all made sense. It all the pieces fit. From top to bottom, babyface and heel, it all fit. It wasn't that the babyface team was subpar. The heel team just went the extra mile to ensure the win, as they should have. Even though I'm not even fully sure if Fury and Sanchez are heels. I guess they are. They never really established it one way or the other. But yeah, she tosses the opponent in, goes out, stops him. Meanwhile, in the ring, Sanchez is rolled up by Kalaki. Genesis reverses that roll up, gets the referee's attention, who's busy looking out on the floor, and like, hey, look, pay attention, dude. And then he sees it. Okay, 1, 2, 3. It works. And I like the undertone of, despite the fact that I do not want to be in this, I don't want to be involved, I want to be on my own, you could make the argument that her ego also would not let her be a part of a losing team. All of that stuff works. In its own self-contained bubble, this match, bell to bell, works fine. The only thing that got added into it that was unnecessary was the explanation of Scout Parker, which I'm waiting to see, are we even going to hear from Scout Parker to explain why, or is David McClain's explanation going to have to be the official explanation and we just got to go with that? Which, by the way, if she's such an environmentalist, I don't know why she threw her cape in the trash when that thing probably could have been given to somebody or recycled or whatever. So we will see how this goes. And that was my note, by the way, before we move on to the next thing. First note was, why is Nigel Dane surprised about Genesis on his team? Isn't he part of the booking? Or, I mean, doesn't he not see the rundown sheet when he's sitting there? Because any wrestling place I've ever seen had a rundown sheet. This match is up, this match is next, third match is that. These are the people involved. And it's not like it was a secret or it happened that moment, because Dave McClain established that it happened that moment. They asked her and he put her in there. So I don't know what the surprise was. The second note was, again, one loss made Ice Cold change her gimmick. I don't know. Anyhow, moving on. Good match. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everybody that participated in it. I wish I had more of that, less of the other stuff. Next segment is the promo for the main event. It's another number one contenders match. Classmaster versus Santana Garrett. Pause. Why, are we in another number one contenders match? And I understand the reason on TV. But I could have swore we had like 3 number one contenders matches in a row. Princess Aussie and Penelope Pink. Penelope Pink and Jessie Jones. Jessie Jones and Penelope Pink. Supposedly, Jessie Jones should be the number one contender. But it seems also like that's been forgotten about. And now she's busy dealing with the mother truckers. And along with that, an entirely new match, new persons that had nothing to do with any of the previous number one contender matches are now going after the number one contendership. It is every reason why I say the stuff around the matches weighed this show down, because the creative here is awful. It sucks. Unfortunately for them, it's not like they can do anything about it, because the persons that are making this creative don't have anybody over top of them that can tell them, stop doing this crap. Or at least try to make it make some kind of sense. None of those things are happening. None of those things are going to happen. So we just got to deal with it the best we can. So the next segment, the commentators go back or pitch back to Jessie Jones and Big Rig getting into her busted up truck outside of Lana's mansion at the door. Remember, Holly Swag decided that I want to stay here, even though she wasn't really, a part of the girls, so to speak. She was serving them drinks, but I guess in her mind that's good enough. I don't know. None of this is explainable. So we see Jones and Big Rig outside the door, and, Big Rig's talking about getting Holly Swag back, and Jones has a plan. Like, kids don't know what they're talking about now. Does Jessie Jones have kids? I was pretty sure that she didn't. Why is Big Rig Betty taking advice from somebody that doesn't have kids about how kids are? Now, granted, that doesn't mean that she's wrong. I can give you that. Doesn't mean that Jessie Jones is wrong. But I don't know, where did her motherly instinct suddenly go to that she didn't understand that, yeah, kids do dumb things sometimes. So here we got Jones like, I got a plan. I guess she had this plan calculated in her head within moments, because theoretically this is all supposed to have happened in a short span, not the 45 minutes that it took to air it. From the invisible wild cameras that I guess exist here. So she has a plan. They get in the truck. She's like, come on. And they drive off. So I don't know where that's going. I did see the suggestion for it, and I hope that I read that wrong. I'll just go ahead and say it, that theoretically this is leading to a match for the freedom of Holly Swag. Even though I don't know how this would be presented that way when she voluntarily stayed. It's not like she's under contract. So I have to watch how that's played out. The next thing that we get is an ad for WOW's website and social media with the Nigel Zane voiceover, surprisingly enough, opposed to David McClain. That was different. I was surprised they advertised it at all. So good on them for doing that. I have not seen or heard them advertise anything else that they have, like their merchandise or the 24-hour Pluto TV channel that they were so proud of. Have you heard them mention that at all on their show? Like, have they say, hey, guys, you want to see more WOW? Go to Pluto TV. We got a channel 24 hours a day, 7 days. Have we seen or heard that at all? I don't think so. I could be wrong. But I don't think we've heard that in the slightest. So, no, who knows? Or for that matter, have we heard that they air on Vice TV? A lot of people don't even know that they did. I don't know. I'm not sure if they still do. But at one point in time, they had a show that aired on Vice TV. Same thing that came on the weekends. But if you happen to be in a location or you have the Vices on your cable service or satellite service, you might want to watch it. I don't think I've heard them mention that once in 3 seasons that they're on Vice. I think it's Wednesday night at midnight on Vice TV. Has that happened? It's like, well, we got a show there, but screw it. If they find it, they find it. They don't, who cares? This is what Genie Bus pays for. The next segment was the preview of next week and a potential break in the Mother Truckers. This previews the choice between Big Rig Betty, Jessie Jones, and Lana Star and the Fabulous Four for Holly Swag, apparently. Now, that's not what the press release reads, but we'll get to that momentarily. Next segment is the main event of the show. It's Classmaster with Samantha Smart taking on Santana Garrett. Where do I begin with this? Not that the match is bad. I'm just going to begin with saying that. But I don't know what we were supposed to get out of having Santana Garrett. Like, this came off to me as an absolute foregone conclusion. And why do I feel that way? Because the Classmaster here is only dealing with Santana Garrett. The way that they set this up, Santana Garrett is just an obstacle. There's nothing that I read, heard, saw, or what have you that would lead you to believe, or me to believe, that Santana Garrett was in this for the opportunity to win a championship shot. There's nothing that would lead you to believe that. She hadn't even said anything about it. Like, no promo, no, I get the opportunity. And this is one of the massive issues that I have with WOW, is that everybody's issues, problems, angles, concerns have to be explained by David rather than them. So what you got here again is Santana Garrett was put into this number one contenders match out of the blue and really hadn't said anything about it, hadn't addressed it, didn't look like it meant anything. It was just another match. So thereby, I only look at this as Santana Garrett was there as an obstacle. Why she was an obstacle, I don't know, because it was a poor negotiating segment that Samantha Smart was in. I mean, she walked into, just a brief recap. She walked into that thing like, hey, I got another name. And if you give us a title match, I'll give you the name. David McClain counters with, well, if you give me the name, I'll give you a match for somebody. And then if you win that, then you'll get a title shot. Apparently, somehow that was good enough. And they're like, all right, well, the disciplinarian. Like, what kind of negotiation was that? Especially when earlier in that same episode, he gave up 10 grand for it, but you willing to accept the shot at a shot. It doesn't make her come off as smart. Let's just be honest. She might be smart in 1,000 other things in life, but pro wrestling is not one of them. Never mind the fact that if we say this every time the Classmaster comes out, if her one selling point is that she's tall, why are we signing her a tall manager to stand right there with her? And in this episode, she's taller than the Classmaster because of the goddamn heels that she's wearing. And then it got worse during the match. And I'll get to that. Oh yeah, the opening video clips that they do to introduce the persons coming out. My God, is she such an overactor? The faces that she's giving and the pointing the finger and pointing at my head and all. Holy crap. The Classmaster is an overacting beast. She just needs to get a comedy show assigned to her somewhere so she can do all of this stuff and it fit. She's a wrestling dichotomy. In the ring, she's supposed to be a threat. In the ring, she's supposed to be dominating. In the ring, she's supposed to be powerful and looked at as an equivalent to, or at least close to, what the Beast offers. Outside of that, she's a goof. And does really nothing to change it. Samantha Smart nominally does the talking for her. But again, it's the reason why Lana Star is the top manager there opposed to Samantha Smart. You know, not just because she has championships, it's presentation. And we talk about the presentation in a while. So, before this takes place, Abilene Maverick comes out to the commentary table. David suggests that Maverick has been faking an injury to avoid the Beast. Okay. I don't know. Why would she continue to fake her injury? The Beast hadn't been there in a month and a half. For what does she have to gain off of continuing to fake an injury? If anything, she should be saying they need to just bring me the title or something. But within the course of the match, as Abilene Maverick is talking and conversating with Dave McClain, it is brought up that she is bringing someone to WoW. And of course, Dave McClain has no idea who this is. Who is it? Who are you going to tell us? Can you give me a guess? Whatever. My guess is Paola the Goat. All right. That's my assumption. I don't know that to be true. I have no inside track on that, but that would be my best guess that is Paola. She would seem to fit the narrative of what Abilene Maverick provides. Also, while they're doing this commentary, I know this is not related to the match at all. They talk about Americana not being there, having to tend to the broken arm of her son, and that she's 3 years sober. I guess they just wanted to throw that in there too, because it's not like we ever understood that she had a drinking problem to begin with. That might have been something that she needed to use to establish who she is and why she's there. Not just a random blurb about, yeah, she's 3 years sober. What? I didn't know that she had a problem to begin with. So, yeah, it's things like that. See, this is why I say that it would be nice if these people got the chance to relate their own stories every once in a while, rather than having the commentators constantly have to do it. Are they obligated legally or something to say Little Levi every time they mention him? God damn. I mean, it was annoying enough when they tried to integrate him into the story. But, I mean, we're beyond that. He's not even on the screen. And, she had to take care of Little Levi. Levi's fine. You could just say Levi. It doesn't have to be Little Levi all the goddamn time. Levi. Or, you know what? Even better, her son. She's not there because she has to take care of her son. That's what the mother does. Moving on. Now, how difficult is that? So anyhow, it did answer the question why Santana Garrett was there by herself. Although, when I see her come out there and they mentioned Americana, it did make me think, what a dumb decision they made a couple of weeks ago. Like, well, we'll give up our title shot to give it to you because you gave me this sob story, mother truckers. And, but when you win, give us a match, which they never did and they never got. So who got the crap end of that deal? And now they're not even together because the mom had to go because her son is hurt. And that's understandable, but, it does make them come off as having made a stupid decision. In the match, it is a great visual for the Classmaster to be standing there with Santana Garrett and most of the opponents that she has. It's a great visual because she towers over most of them. It takes away from that visual when she's always there with an equally tall Samantha Smart, and she does not help things. She's already probably about 5'10", 6 feet, something like that on her own. Why are you wearing the heels? Why are you wearing the heels? And in this case, like I said, she looked taller than Santana Garrett. I mean, not Santana Garrett, the Classmaster. And so the match is presented as, the tall, domineering powerhouse opposed to the smaller, technical Santana Garrett, which is basically what most of Classmaster matches are kind of delivering, or at least they're portrayed as. But the part that I had the problem with here is Santana Garrett, at the beginning of it, gets the advantage, right? So the Classmaster has to roll out of the ring, and she's trying to recoup herself, and then Santana Garrett decides to go out there after her. But rather than to be the domineering powerhouse that she, I guess, supposed to be, she stands out there just pointing at her head. I don't even know what that was about. Like, why? You can't think of anything else to do, just stall for time than to sit there pointing at your head. I mean, it just seems so stupid and silly. So she's standing out there, she's doing that. Santana Garrett comes out and she comes around and then she chases the Classmaster. I don't know why the Classmaster is running. Again, she's supposed to be some sort of powerhouse. So what is she running from her for? But that was the less egregious part. The more egregious part is that Samantha Smart decides to jump in the way of Santana Garrett as she's chasing the Classmaster. And she doesn't just jump in the way as a cowardly manager, like, whoa, no, please don't hurt me. She pretty much jumps in the way like, hey, what you going to do? Like it's a complete reversal of fortune. Like she's the bodyguard helping her cowardly client. She's not supposed to be a bodyguard. She's not supposed to be staring down Santana Garrett like, do something. You're a manager. If you want to be a bodyguard, then change it to being a bodyguard. But you're a manager. You're not supposed to be physically intimidating to the wrestler. But the 2 or 3 seconds that she had right there, she was essentially playing the part of being physically intimidating to Santana Garrett, because it's not like she moved out of the way. It's not like Santana Garrett, it's not like she moved out of the way or got up in her face or threatened her or anything like that. And on the other side of it, just judging off of the body language, it's not like Samantha Smart looked like she was afraid for her life, scared, worried, concerned of physical violence or anything like that. She just like jumped in the way and made a wall of herself. Like, hey, all right, do something. What are you going to do? And then the Classmaster comes charging around and elbows Santana Garrett and regains control. Because apparently Santana Garrett has no peripheral vision and she did not see this lummox coming. So she gets her back into the ring. And we go back into the whole beatdown of Garrett. Meanwhile, of course, conversations going on the outside. None of this stuff is important. I mean, the match is fine, but it is not as if the outcome is in question here. So let's just get to the end of it. I mean, there are nice things that happen there, like the leg drop or the leg on the back of the head. It used to be referred to as the final cut with the Big Show, although it was not to the back of the head, it's to like the throat. There was little portions of this where I would say there might have been some timing issues where Classmaster had to stand back and wait, or something like that. She didn't move necessarily smoothly, but it wasn't like it was a botch in the sense of what Crystal Waters did. Sorry to point her out, but it's true. It's not like it was like that, or it's not like the match that Classmaster had with Roxy Fierce, where it's like the timing was just off. It was just another one of those cases of I have to wait a second or two in order for me to do what I'm doing. So, again, get into the end of the match. Garrett applies Chancery onto the Classmaster. And it was applied by Austin Aries. It was the last Chancery. So she has that hooked in, and Classmaster is saying, no, I'm not giving up, or, whatever the case may be. Samantha Smart comes down to, hard camera side of the ring. She's pushing the ropes, even though Classmaster's in the middle. I don't know why pushing the ropes at that point would be useful. It would have been more useful if she had done that while she had gotten close. So I did question the time by which she decided to try and push the ropes. She gets to the ropes, breaks the count, or breaks the hold. Classmaster gets up. Garrett goes closer towards the ropes, I guess, assumingly to pull herself up. Samantha Smart uses her yardstick across the back of the neck, and she starts draping Garrett, I guess, to choke her out. I'm not saying that wouldn't work. It does not look great on TV. Again, not that it couldn't work. I understand the concept of it. But it didn't look good on TV. What it looked like on TV is that she was just rubbing the yardstick back and forth across her hair. That's how it came across. So, as that happens, and then Garrett's able to get up on her feet, she basically gets up, turns around, and walks into a big boot, and that was it. 1, 2, 3, she's done. And there we have it. The big boot ends the match. Classmaster wins, and she wins now a number 1 contendership to take on the Beast, even though we've had other people win number 1 contenderships to take on the Beast. If ever there was an argument for a secondary championship in WoW, this would be it. And I don't mean them stupid vanity belts that they got. I mean a secondary championship that somebody singularly can hold that might do something useful for them. So McLean says, now it'll be the Classmaster versus the Beast. I wrote down what happened to the last 3 number 1 contender matches. Smart cuts a promo afterwards, prepping for the title match. The show ends with McClain asking again, who's Maverick's surprise? She doesn't answer. I already gave you who I think it is. The last note that I wrote here was the episode was mostly good, but it seems to negate the previous number one contenders matches. Why did we have them in the first place? As I'm generally not a fan of wild surprises because they can't produce major names in the wrestling industry, but this might be different because of Paola's reality TV background. Now, it wouldn't be different for the average wrestling fan. It might be different for them as a company if they can capitalize on her. But overall, it's not like they're going to, oh my God, it's Mickie James. It's like you're not getting that. You're not going to get some sort of major talent that decided to show up there. They've had some. I'm not going to completely discount WoW for having access to them. They've had a few. Tessa Blanchard, Kara Hogan, Diamante. I mean, there are Jessica Havoc, Amber O'Neal, Santana Garrett. There's people that's been there and that are there that are good names. But will they have a name who has enough cachet within the wrestling industry that it would make a major difference that they showed up there? That was the overall note there. And I don't think so. They just never seem to produce that. And I have very little faith that they will. But that was the entirety of the episode, top to bottom, as stated earlier. The matches, enjoyable. Did not have a problem with any of them. It's all the stuff around it, which is why I say about 80% of this is good. I mean, overall, I would give it a thumbs up. But that also requires me having to just watch the match. And if I were able to just get past the Mother Truckers segments not being there at all, it'd probably be like a 90 for me. But that drags it down, in my opinion. Also, David McClain continues to drag it down, in my opinion. Not because he's doing it on purpose, but because he becomes the avatar for everybody that has a story to tell. And they do not tell their own story. Scott Parker should be talking about why she's there. Americana should have said something. The Beast should have sent a video. Santana Garrett could have said something. Like, there's any number of ways and persons that could have provided this information that he is relating. But they constantly have him do it for them. Yes, there are exceptions that are there. Samantha Smart gets the chance to talk for herself mostly, even if most of those promos are repeat promos. It's, I'm smarter than you, and we're going to win the championship, and the Classmaster is better than everybody, and we're better than everybody. We're smarter than everybody. It's a lot of rinse and repeat as far as her stuff is concerned. It's phrased differently. And I won't even put that all on her. She doesn't really have a focal point for the Classmaster at this juncture. She just doesn't. I mean, she's aiming to go for a championship that isn't on their television. And we haven't seen that championship defended since like early August. So she's trying to make a big deal out of a title that's not there, which I don't think has a lot of value on it to begin with, honestly. I do not believe that the WoW Championship has any sort of value behind that belt. And the Beast is not doing anything to help that. Her having the title is not doing anything to help that. You've had other people that came in and won the title and they were able to give some reasonable matches there and doing stuff to help elevate the championship and put it into some sort of perspective as something worth fighting for. You can make that claim for Tessa Blanchard, even though her angles and storylines were all over the page in WoW when she was there. You can make that argument for Ozzy, even though it ended in the most ridiculous of fashions her suggesting a match that she didn't know the rules of herself. You can make that argument with Penelope Pink, even though she has failed upward on a number of occasions in that company. She lose, but then somehow still be a number one contender. It's all the things that the company makes them do that takes them down. And they have to have strong matches in spite of that. They have to have good matches that make them look good along with the title that they're fighting for in spite of the creative. And the only person that's there that doesn't really do that, hate to say that about her, is the Beast. She got a good stint of a couple of matches in there. But overall, the mystique of her is gone. And what I mean by that is, like, her entire gimmick is the unstoppable monster, right? And normally, when you have that, the first loss is the important loss. Think about the people who went into the business or was on somebody's program who's been undefeated. You can go Goldberg. You can go Lesnar. You can go in TNA and Samoa Joe. You can still with TNA and say EC3, that first run that he had there, which is one of the better undefeated streaks, I must say. And right down to when somebody finally did it, it's like, oh man, you know, he, even though it didn't really do much for him in the overall scheme of things, Maria Kanellis' husband, I don't know why his name just dropped out of my head right there. But when he lost that, I mean, yeah, it opened up the door for them to have a rematch, and he had to work his way back into just earning a shot at him for redemption. The Beast doesn't have any of that. It's just she lost, and it just kind of went away, and you know, who was it? Bennett, Mike Bennett. That's who it was. But yeah, the Beast just kind of lost the one time that she did, or maybe twice. And then past that point, it was just injury. Title gone. Win the title back. Injury. Gone again. And I'm sure, as I say with a lot of them, I'm sure she's a lovely young woman. I'm sure she's very nice and all that good stuff. But I also tend to think that she, and this is nothing against her, I also tend to think that she does not help that championship. Just holding on to it nonstop, while it could be on somebody else, it could be wrestled for, it could, you know, they could have had a match for Jessie Jones and Penelope Pink for the vacant championship by now, rather than it just sitting around on the shelf or in her suitcase or whatever. I don't know. But the point being here is that her having it does not help the title at all. Doesn't elevate it, doesn't do anything for it. It does nothing. At this point, I'm not even sure if one of them pinning the Beast would do anything for them. It's just in and out. Maybe if, and I stress if, she comes back, that might change. But I do not have high hopes on that. Hopefully, for those who participate in WoW and want to see it grow and advance and all that good stuff, hopefully at some point, emphasis will be put on the championship. And at this stage, I would say you need to stick with the people who can actually work and have some reasonable matches. The Beast experiment should be done. It should be done. You know, because all she's going to provide at this point is another squash. And if they didn't get anything out of it the first 2 times that she had the title, it's probably not going to get anything out of it now. So I think it's time to move on. Find something else for her to do. Give it to somebody who can actually have some competitive matchups. Maybe draw some interest in it just on the match alone. But outside of that, I do believe that this should be over with. So last thoughts on the episode and things I thought they should have either addressed or done. Specifically this. The Holly Swag scenario. She really, or they really should have done more to advertise the fact that she was being swayed in this direction. They should have done more to show why she was wanting to live this life, why she was wanting to stay, rather than what we saw. I'm serving drinks, so I want to go back to serving drinks. There's a vast difference in somebody being manipulated on screen, seduced on screen, whatever the case may be, opposed to I just voluntarily stay. And what she's doing, she's just voluntarily staying. I would cite the early phases of the $1 Million Man. One segment in particular really stands out in my mind with that. Now, he's had plenty, but one segment in particular. When Jesse Ventura was supposed to be the special referee for SummerSlam, their inaugural SummerSlam. And he is on, well, I think it was Piper's Pit. And the heels confront him. Now, he's been a heel manager. I'm not a heel manager. He's been a heel commentator the whole time. So it's not as if people thought he was going to lean against them. No, it was Brother Love show, I think. Brother Love. So anyway, on this segment, it's not like people thought that Ventura was going to lean against the heels. He had always sided with the heels in commentary. So that wasn't the case. The thing is that it was presented as, can you call this down the middle? And we know that you're afraid of one man, that's Andre the Giant, blah, blah, blah. And, Ventura has to stand on his own 2 feet. So, figuratively speaking, it's like, hey, look, I could get in the ring tomorrow and win the championship. And he points his fist at Brother Love's face. Like, you see this? You think I'm afraid of anybody? And then, of course, the heels come out there and confront him. Bobby Heenan says some words to him. Andre says some words to him in a threatening manner, threatening undertones. And then here comes the $1 Million Man. And he's like, hey, and just remember, Jesse, and he snaps his fingers and Virgil starts handing him $100 bills. $100 bills, and you can see it. And he's stuffing them into the pocket, the interior jacket pocket of Jesse Ventura. Basically tell him that, if you see things my way, things could be good for you. They didn't expressly say that he was buying them off, but you got the message. It's $100 bills being shoveled into this man's pockets directly before a match that he has to referee. He's the official for. I'm not going to say on TV, call the match for me, make sure I win, but we got the point. And there's no way that anybody watching that would misunderstand Ventura's desire, so to speak, to help them. Opposed to this, we don't see any of that. None of it. So it becomes very difficult for me to get behind it or root for it or root against it for that matter or anything. It doesn't help. So I don't know. I mean, that would be one of the big things. So like, show the example, show the motivation behind being bought is what it comes down to. Show the reasons why you would do this. And Wild has not done a good job of it. And I don't expect it to get any better. But let's just say what it is. They had not done a good job. The whole thing with Genesis at the end, not wanting to be in a team, which clearly David McClain did not give a crap. Since he put her in one anyway and basically gave her an ultimatum right before the match, like, are you going or not? I don't know. That seems to be an ongoing thing with Wow. David McClain will get the last word. Go figure. So let's get to the preview of the next episode. The next episode listed as of this press release. Season 3, Episode 9, title, Where Do You Belong, Holly Swag. A mother's love knows no bounds. And as they say, when you love something, challenge the people who want to take it away to a match. It's Big Rig Betty and Jessie Jones versus Miami's Sweet Heat, Lindsay and Lori Carlson, in the main event to determine who retains the alliance of Holly Swag. New superhero Xena Phoenix makes her wild debut against Scout Parker, and the Fierce Sisters, Foxy and Roxy Fierce, face off against Animal Instincts, Goldie Collins and Katarina Jinx. Also in action, the alliances Reina Del Rey versus Tiki Chamorro. Okay. So I did make mention of some of this earlier in the show. Why are they wrestling for Holly Swag? Is she being forced to do any of this? I swear, man, whoever, I know who writes, but I'm just going to keep it at that. Whoever writes this, take a goddamn writing class, please. Or buy a book and read it, something. You don't have to go to anybody. You know, you can take these classes online. You ain't got to leave your house. But take a class or ask somebody or get somebody else to do this. What sense does this make? And I hope that it's just written badly. Because that's the only hope that this scenario has. I hope this is just written badly. And that something else happens on the show. But why would they wrestle for her alliance? She is not a captive. She's not being held hostage. And if you were going to do something like that, why didn't Jessie Jones say, hey, look, I'll wrestle Penelope Pink for their freedom? That would have been made more sense. Get them out of servitude. Instead of, I'll take this and win the money for them, and then I'll give up every cent I have to get them away from you, only for you to stay. God damn. I mean, what? Why? It doesn't make any sort of sense. I'm not even sure if I like the idea of the rechristened Scout Parker getting in there with Xena Phoenix, because theoretically that's two new people. Now, Wild's logic would lean towards Xena Phoenix having to lose. That's what Wild's logic would lean towards. But I would not be. I have no idea who's going to win that. But that's not the way that I would debut either one of them, much less against each other. Why? If I'm trying to kick her off into this new leg of her career, I don't want her to come into a loss. She just lost to begin with, and it caused her to change her mind and become this person. And then you got Xena Phoenix, who hasn't been there before. And what are you going to do? You got this person that theoretically you might be able to make it to a star, but she's got to come into a loss like everybody else does. So I fully expect that. And then the Fierce Sisters, who I'm guessing they will probably win over Animal Instinct. I mean, It is what it is with them. They don't really have any purpose or goal or plans or anything else in front of them. They just show up when they show up. And did they even say or do anything about the beating they took from Classmaster, Samantha Smart, and Chainsaw, and Siren, and Dante? Did they do or say anything about that? Why aren't any of those 5 people fired either? If we're going off of just terminating people for assault. Yeah, I expect the Phoenix and Parker match at least to be interesting. In terms of the match, I expect Big Rig and Jones versus Miami Sweet to be interesting. Del Rey and Chamorro I expect to be a squash. Unless Tiki does something good and learns to fight from underneath. But outside of that, I expect it to be a squash. But other than that, I seriously question this angle. It's already bad. And let's not make this worse. It's too late, but I just have to say that. Let's not make this worse. So that's it, folks. I have gone on way, way, way long. This is why I put chapters in here so you can breeze through it. Especially if you're on YouTube, you can just jump to what you want to hear. So in that regard, thank you for tuning in and giving this show a listen and participating where you do get a chance to participate. I did not watch this in full yet, but I am going to make this suggestion to you out there for those who were looking for some weekly wrestling suggestion outside of WoW's confines. I am going to suggest to you Aysha versus Jacey Love. Now, for those of you who do not know who Jacey Love is, she was on WoW's television not all that long ago. As one of the members of Team Spirit, Sparks. Was that her name? I can't remember her full name because it was so unimportant. God, that sounded horrible. But it was. I really hate to say that, but it wasn't important. What was she on Team Spirit for, like 3 episodes or something like that? Sasha Sparks. And honestly, I might be pushing it to say 3. But if you want to see her outside of the WoW environment and not being a cheerleader and just having a match as herself and see how good or bad she happens to be, then I'm going to suggest this. It is by Local Pro Wrestling. The match is Aysha with a Y, Aysha versus Jacey Love, the formerly Sasha Sparks. So you have that. That could be your assignment for the week. And on that note, we will wrap this up. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to find any of this stuff, always go to WPNWrestling.com. It is the focal point, centerpiece, nexus for everything that goes on. Podcast, videos, and more, always dating back to 2013. With all interviews, matches, so on and so forth, with faces that you might know and recognize being stretched out from WoW to AEW to MLW to TNA and WWE. Yeah, we've been doing it that long. Now we have that. So, in closing, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.